This video is designed to give you an overview of Voyant AdviserGo, the web-based version of Voyant, which is a holistic, goal-based financial planning software. AdviserGo is available to you to use on a desktop, laptop, any web-enabled tablet, or even on your phone. To access the software, once you've registered for a trial account, or if you already have a subscription, just log in to our UK website, so www.planwithvoyant.co.uk, enter your username and password and click Take Me to AdviserGo, or if you enter www.planwithvoyant.co.uk/AdviserGo, it will take you straight to the login page. I'm already in my plan for Harry and Alice Beeston, but if I wanted to go to my home screen, I could click the profile picture at top right and click to go to the home screen, where I would see my list of existing client plans that I'd already built. And if I wanted to create a new client plan from scratch on the home screen, I could click the plus button at the bottom right hand corner to start inputting the details for a new client. But as I've already built this plan, I'm now on the dashboard, which is the first screen that you see when you enter a client record on Voyant AdviserGo. The profile button that I clicked on to show you where the home button is also enables you to set your own user profile and to set your preferences for using the software. If I click on preferences, you'll see that I've got Show Dashboard Chart turned on. I have the option to hide or to show the dashboard chart. I like to keep it visible whilst I'm building a plan, because you will see the chart react as you add or amend things, and that acts as a sense check. When I'm presenting to clients, I like to have it turned off so that I use the dashboard purely as a page where I sense check the data that I've entered, and then I take them onto the Let's See screen after that. I do keep inline help switched on. It's a very useful feature that we've built into the software, and I'll demonstrate that as we go along. Let's close this box down. And the dashboard screen, which we're looking at, has my chart at the top. I've got the cash flow simple chart turned on at the moment, and you'll see how we change the chart view in a minute. Beneath the chart, I have the various sections which will contain the data that I've entered. I can expand the whole of the dashboard by clicking the downward pointing arrow and close it up by clicking on the upward pointing arrow, or expand one section at a time. So if I click people, I can see the names of the people, their ages at the start of the plan and their birth years. If I were to click into an individual client, I could amend any details. Note that each person gets a coloured icon, and that will denote the ownership of their events on the timeline and of the accounts, incomes, debts, etc. on the dashboard. If we close up people and move on to goals, goals are a new feature in Voyant AdviserGo. A goal is a trackable expense, and they're really designed for modelling clients' financial objectives, whether they're long-term ongoing financial objectives, such as this one that I've created, which I've called Essential Expenditure. The clients want to have £5,000 per month to spend throughout their lifetime. It's on basic things like food, utilities, so I've modelled it as a basic priority. I've factored in inflation, and I've set the timing from the start until the plan end. If I want to adjust the value of that £5,000 per month along the way, I can use steps. If we go back to the dashboard, you'll see that I also have a discretionary spending goal. So this is for the nice things in life: holidays, going to the theatre, all of those nice hobbies. This is £6,000 per annum. It's less of a priority than my essential spending, so I've moved it down the priority list. The software will pay for the basic goals or expenses first, and then move on to cover the discretionary spending in any given year. Again, I've set an overall timing period, but I've stepped this up and down along the way. When they retire, they're going to increase their discretionary spending, have a great period of early retirement, which I've called Living the Dream, on my timeline, and then they'll slow it down as they go into later life. I've got other goals in this plan. I've got some short-term university costs, which I've created using an education goal, and I've got some one-off gifts to the children for house deposits. In AdviserGo, to add anything, I click the plus button down at bottom right-hand side of the screen and choose what it is that I want to add to the plan. So to add a goal, I click Goals and choose the type of goal that I want to add. We're tracking these goals, these financial objectives, and you can see that in this base plan, we're on track to fully cover all of those financial objectives over whatever period I've modelled them in for. If I close up the goals section and move on to income, I've modelled in the various forms of income, their employment income because they're both working at the moment, and a one-off lump sum for Alice who's due to get an inheritance. Savings and investments, a list of their different existing cash savings and invested assets. If I need to amend anything, I just click into it and amend the details and then click Done to save any changes. And I can also look at an overview of the savings and investment section. I'm modelling in this plan by deterministic growth rates. But if I choose to model by asset allocation, I can also check the asset allocation that I've used in this pie chart. But because I'm not modelling by asset allocation, I'm not seeing any asset allocation here. It's showing all as cash. The property section allows me to enter a home or any other physical property. Again, that will depend on the type that I select. And I can link debts, expenses or incomes to a property. Here we've got it linked to one item. Again, if I click details, you'll see that I've linked a debt to the property. Scrolling on down, we come to the pensions section. I've got different sorts of pensions in this plan: money purchase, their current pensions that they're contributing to, a final salary scheme, some empty drawdown pots related to the money purchase ones, and some state pensions. Again, to add anything like a pension or an investment, click the plus button at bottom right and select the appropriate button. Here's our debt that's linked to the property. The little paperclip icon tells me that it's linked to something else in the plan. We've entered some protection policies, and we've entered some short-term expenses that we didn't feel the need to enter as goals. They know that they can afford these from their earnings and they're only payable for a couple more years in the plan. So I've just put them in as an expense. The carryover assumptions section of my dashboard is for adding client-specific tax information. So if they had a rebate due to them in year one, or a tax bill due to pay based on income in the years prior to the plan starting, I could factor it in here. If they've already crystallised some of their pension benefits, I need to account for the lifetime allowance that's been used to date, or if they've got protection, I can factor it in here. I can add carry forward from the 3 years prior to the plan starting, so the software knows that it's available. If they're widowed, I can add in inherited nil rate ban from the deceased spouse, or if they've already been doing IHT planning, I can add in potentially exempt transfers from the 7 years prior to the plan starting. And if they have some capital gains realised in the year to date, or losses that the software should know about, I can factor them in here. And there's a carryover assumptions screen for each person in the plan. At the bottom of the dashboard is a really important section called Plan Settings. And this is where I set up the long-term assumptions that I want to make about investment returns, cash returns, growth or escalation rates. And as with any of the input screens in the software, you will see that some of the field names are underlined with green dots. And this is an indication of inline help being available. Remember that we switched it on when we clicked on our home button up at top right. Click where the green dots are and the help button pops out. It tells you what this particular field is used for in the software. There may be links to more detailed articles. If I click on one of these links, a new tab will open and take you to a relevant article within our knowledge base. Up at the top, you may find a More Information or a Watch tab. That may have more links and more information, or it may have a link to a video. Finally, there's a Help tab, and this has some very useful resources if you're new to AdviserGo. A sitemap, an introductory learning guide bringing together some of the key videos and articles, a link to our YouTube channel with lots of videos about specific topics, and a link to our webinar channel. Another link as well to our knowledge base. And there's an email address for the support team who are ready to help you whenever you have a question about the software. Let's close that down. So you can see the sorts of assumptions that I'm setting into the plan, various measures of inflation, what's happening to default tax table assumptions, etc. And our headline growth rates, although I can amend these for individual accounts on the individual input screens. I can also set the charges that I want to apply. If I want to model by asset allocation, I can build in a specific asset allocation for a particular account. We have some built-in market assumptions, but if you choose to rebrand the software, we can build in for you your own firm assumptions about inflation rates, growth rates, and any market assumptions about the different classes of assets that you want to use. Liquidation order. This sets at a high level the order in which the software will draw on invested assets if it needs to cover expenses. The general rule in Voyant is that we will use regular income first to meet expenditure, then any available liquid cash, and only then will we move on to spending invested assets. And this is the default order. Taxable is your unwrapped investments first, tax deferred, which is money purchase, pensions and bonds second, and tax-free, which is ISAs last. But if you need to adjust that, just alter the order using the up and down arrows, and you can drag individual classes of investment in as well. If you're doing a client-specific decumulation strategy, you will probably override the liquidation order by using planned withdrawals. Savings order enables you to tell the software where to save money at a very high level. Again, if you're giving the client specific advice about needing to save or invest more, you'll probably model that in a what-if scenario and show them the impact and the benefits of taking your advice, whether that be investing into pensions, ISAs, EISs or VCTs, etc. Calculation settings sets up how the software will treat any surplus income. The default is that we don't automatically save regular surplus income, but if you do want to save it, you could switch this to yes. And also how we're growing various assets. If you make any changes to plan settings, just click Done to save those. Every time you click Done, the changes save both on your screen and save directly onto our server. So that's the dashboard screen. The other thing that you can see at the bottom right hand corner is this widget. I've got it displaying assets by type. If I mouse over, I can see where my wealth is held at the start of the plan. Some in property, some in cash, non-pension investments, and a substantial amount in pensions. I can switch the widget to look at my assets versus my liabilities, and therefore my net worth. Or if I was choosing to model by asset allocation, which I'm not in this plan, I could switch on the asset allocation pie chart, and this outer ring would show me my different asset classes if I were using them. I tend to keep it on assets by type. At the top, we're displaying the cash flow simple chart. I can either use the drop-down menu to select a different sort of chart, or I can swipe left or right with my mouse or on a touchscreen device with my finger, or use these arrows to circle through the different chart views that are available. I can put the details on by swiping up and down, or clicking on the details box and introduce the colours. If you need a key, click the 3 grey dots and put the legend on. If you want to see what's going on behind the scenes in any given year, click Year View. And then this slider appears beneath the chart and it highlights a year. Here we're highlighting year 1, we've greyed out the rest of the chart. So you can see where is the income coming from in this year. What are we having to pay for in terms of expenses? And these are colour coded depending on how you've prioritised them and the type of expense that they are. We can look at the end of year balance for our investments, the net growth rates that we're applying and any contributions or withdrawals that are being made. The same for pensions, and if you want to drill even further into the detail, click on an item and you can see how the contributions are being made. If we were making withdrawals, we would see what was being withdrawn and any lifetime allowance calculations for pensions. If I click property, I'll see the projected end of year value for the property and the end of year balance of any debt that's outstanding. The debt shows me what I'm repaying in this year and the end of year balance. Protection shows me if I've got any protection policies and any premiums that I'm paying on them. And last but not least, there's a taxes calculation. The cumulative tax summary shows me the tax that's been paid in the years to date. I'm looking at year 1 here, so it's just my year 1 tax that's showing up so far. Scroll down and I'll see the tax brackets and rates that we're applying. And then beneath that, we have an in-year tax calculation for each person in the plan, so that you can see what levels of tax they're paying. And we would also see if there were any gains or any taxes arising on bonds, we would see those being calculated and added in here. If I move the slider along to a year into the future, obviously my cumulative tax has increased. And again, I can look at any of the other tabs that I want to for that year. Click to turn off Year View. Let's move on along the top and look at the timeline. So the timeline is intended to be a very visual representation for the client of what their financial plan might look like. And we have these coloured bars that are intended to show them the life planning stage that they're at. When you first start a new plan in Voyant, they'll be called pre-retirement and retirement if the client is not already retired. I've chosen to personalise this plan for my client by renaming the stages. So to rename a stage, click on the bar, and here I called this one working years instead of pre-retirement. So it's the period from now, the start, to retirement. Some clients or some users call this accumulation stage. I've then broken retirement up into 2 stages. The first one I've called living the dream. Early retirement, hopefully they'll have accumulated plenty of wealth and they can afford to enjoy themselves whilst they're still relatively fit and active. I've then created a later life stage when they'll slow down a bit, and I've added events to my timeline to act as stage boundaries. So here I'd added a slowdown event and I had my retirement event, which the software automatically created. When I first put Harry into the software, it asked me, when is he intending to retire? If I need to add other events along the way, again, just click the plus button. And this is also where I could create an additional stage if I wanted to. So the timeline has these event icons on it. I've chosen event icons that sort of relate to what the clients may be planning for. And an event is just a place marker in time. We add the price tag by adding a goal or an expense that's linked to that point in time. And you can see my goals down beneath the timeline. If I hover over a goal, we will highlight the beginning and end of that goal. This was their essential expenditure. It's happening all the way through the lifetime of the plan. Whereas if I hover over one of the university costs goals, you'll see it's just happening for 3 years whilst William's at university. And then if I hover over one of the house deposit goals, you'll see it's just happening in 1 year when they're planning to give Polly some money. The events on the right hand side, again, as I mouse over the events, it will highlight that particular event so I can see at a glance where it is and grey out the rest. And it shows me the owner of the event and the age of the owner and the year in which that will happen. Up at the top, I've got the names of the people in the plan. If we've got a busy timeline, I can simplify it. Just click, for example, to hide the parents. And now we're focusing on the children, the events that are relevant to them, and their ages are appearing underneath the timeline. Put the parents back on. We could hide the children if we wanted to. So that's the timeline. You're aiming to really help the client think about what they're seeking to achieve with their money and plan that out over their lifetime. Let's move on to the Let's See screen so that we can focus on the charts. We'll start on the simple chart, so turn off the details, and it's cash flow. If every year in the plan is blue, then it's positive cash flow all the way through their lifetime. If we had red, it's a potential shortfall. The black need line is the total need. The blue need line is their basic expenditure need. So the gap between the two is their discretionary spending. Any income over and above the black line is surplus income. And remember, if it's regular surplus income, that's not accumulated. And you can see what it is by hovering over any bar in the chart so that this box pops out. Let's put the details on and we start to see the colours. You can tell the story. Click Hide All and now build the chart. By hiding all of the sources of income, we're focusing on expenditure, everything that's in red. So that's what the clients are planning to spend over their lifetime. These big spikes represent the years they give $100,000 to each of the children to get them on the housing ladder. How are they going to pay for it? Whilst they're working, they're earning. And in most years, their income more than covers their expenditure. We might have some other income. We've got an inheritance in year 2 for Alice. So whilst they're working, in most years, they're fine. What about retirement? What will they have in terms of guaranteed income? They've got state pension and a little bit of DB income. The rest of the red they're going to have to find from their own resources, their savings, investments and pensions. So savings and investments, money purchase pensions, and maybe a little bit of tax credit in the early years, which is higher rate tax relief on pension contributions. So the cash flow chart's looking healthy. I could switch it to assets, taxes, anything that I wanted to. But we could now put the dual chart on and see what's underpinning their cash flow. What does their asset position look like? And again, we can use the hide all or the different coloured buttons to hide assets. So if we want to take the property out of the equation in the assets chart, just hide it and look at their liquid assets. Whilst they're working, they're accumulating and getting growth on those assets. In retirement, they're spending those liquid assets down so that at the end, they've got the value of their property plus whatever remains of their liquid assets. And hovering over any bar brings up the values. I might look at their expenditure pattern. Again, the expenses are colour-coded depending on the prioritisation of them. And again, I can use the interactivity by hiding and looking to see what's their tax profile. Lots of tax and national insurance whilst they're working, less tax in retirement. Here's their basic expenditure, here's their discretionary, the one-off gifts to the children, and then the other, which is their contributions to their pensions whilst they're working. We might look at their debts. They've got a repayment mortgage, so it's disappearing over the remaining term of the mortgage. Net worth and plan worth just show the overall asset values. Net worth excludes trusts, plan worth includes it. And then I've got a taxes detailed chart that I can put on, What sort of tax are they paying and when? Let's go back to the single chart and let's look at the assets chart. The charts are all in nominal terms at outset, but if you want to give the clients a reality check, click on the 3 grey dots and click Real Money. Inline help is shown by the information symbol. Here we've stripped out inflation using our CPI value of 2.5% per annum. So because I've modelled property growth at 2.5%, the value of the property is staying level in real terms. This is particularly useful if we hover over the end of the plan. I had kept a minimum balance of £50,000 in cash over the lifetime of this plan by setting what we call a withdrawal limit. But by using real money, you can illustrate to the client that maybe keeping money in cash is not such a great idea because inflation erodes the real value, the spending power of that cash. That 50,000, by the time they're nearly 90, would be reduced in real terms, if inflation were at 2.5% per annum, to around 18,000. So a little bit of a sense check for the clients, and we can toggle real money on and off. Finally, if you want to, you can zoom in or zoom out using the zoom function on the vertical axis and on the horizontal axis. And let's just turn off both zoom and real money. So we've looked at the charts, and this is our base plan, representing what we know about the client today, projecting it into the future. If we want to model something different for comparison, we click the What If button and create a What If plan by copying our base plan, giving it a new name, and then we make our changes in our new copy plan. Any changes we make in the What If do not affect the base plan. But if we do change something in the base plan, it will affect the what ifs. Down at the bottom, we've got some guided plan creations for the most common things that you're likely to want to do. Once I've built a what if plan, I can use the Let's See to compare plans by clicking Compare Plans Chart View. And here I've built a copy of my base plan with a major loss in it. To see the impact, you can see there's some shortfall. If I switch to my What If We Retire Early, again, I might want to put the details on. They've stopped working 5 years early, and that has an impact of bringing a shortfall into the plan potentially later on because they've had 5 years less earnings, 5 years less pension contributions, and 5 years less growth on their invested assets before they need to start drawing down upon them to fund that living the dream stage. And we've extended that stage by 5 years, so they've got 5 years of spending more money. So I can compare any two plans either in chart view or in list view. When I do list view, I can move the slider to compare any year and have a look at their plan worth, their asset values, etc. The next tab along the top is Legacy. This enables me to assess their potential IHT position, either at the end of the plan, at planned legacy, or if they were both to die at the end of year one, if both die today. If we look at the planned legacy, we get a simple view. Harry dies, leaves everything to Alice. Alice dies a year or two later, leaves everything to the children. And there's a projected IHT liability of about 164,000. If you want to see the details, click, and then you can expand the various sections to see the calculations. Moving on along the top, we've got the insights. Insights are tools in the software to help you answer client questions. And I'm actually going to switch to one of my what if plans, the one where we retired early, to show you how the insights might work. In this plan, they retire 5 years early. They have a potential shortfall later on in life. If I go to the Let's See put the dual chart on, we can see that they've spent their liquid assets down much more quickly in the early years, and so they run out of available money towards the end of the plan. They've got value, but it's locked up in their property, and they've got their emergency fund in cash. The insight can help me answer questions about what we might need to do to solve that potential shortfall. For any insight, click on the I symbol. Inline Help pops out, and you've got a paragraph explaining what it does and a link to a more detailed article, plus a link to a specific video. But just to show you here how this one might work, if I click on Investment Returns and click Get Started, this is going to calculate for me what I actually need to achieve in order not to have shortfall in the plan. I need to achieve 5.15%, whereas if I only achieve 4%, my original planned modelling, I would have the shortfall. So you can toggle between the two. If I wanted to know how much they needed to save to avoid having the shortfall, I can use the annual savings one. Again, this isn't the software giving advice, it's just giving you an indication from where you can develop a discussion with your clients. Have they got 33 or nearly 34,000 a year available to save? If not, do we start lower and then build it up over time as their expenditure lessens, perhaps when the children leave private school, etc. There's a whole range of insights in there. We can model the sensitivity of the plan to investment performance. We can model market crashes. We can assess how much they would be able to afford to spend throughout retirement by running the retirement spending. For clients later on in life, we might look at their potential IHT liability. We might look at their capacity for loss. And we can also model, if we're using asset allocation, volatility mapped onto a plan, or test the probability of achieving our goals by using the Monte Carlo insight. Let's move on to reports now, and we can create a report from any or all of our base plan and what if scenarios just by selecting the plan that we want to create the report for. And if we've created report sets, we can add those in. You can add different sections to different reports. I tend to keep it to the overview reports to keep it relatively succinct, but you can add specific insights or some of the more detailed reports as well. Click Generate Report, and you'll see the progress bar appearing at the bottom. When it's done, the report will pop up on the left-hand side in PDF format. So just to show you what a report might look like, we'll just wait for that to generate. And here it is now. Client's name on the front, date that you produced it, and your name and address. Scroll down. I've put in their events and goals and their timeline to remind them what we're planning ahead for. All of those events, the price tag in terms of the goals, and because this is my what if we retire early, we're not meeting all of those goals, so we can see we've got some shortfalls. The progress bars are not all green. Here's the financial summary, including a cash flow chart. I can choose which chart I want to include. Their net worth at outset, where their wealth's held, tracking the first 3 goals, some of our high-level assumptions, and the results of the insights. What do they need to do in order not to have a shortfall in the plan? I've also included their balance sheet, the fact find, so that we've got a record of where they started from, and my default assumptions, which are really a compliance audit trail. Back into the software, and just to show you one final thing, if you click on the client's name, there's a request support button. If you need help whenever you're working in Voyant, check that your phone number is pre-populated in here. It should have been pulled through from your profile. Type us a message and click Share Client Access. That gives us access to view your plan, and we can then either email you back with an answer to the question, or if it's a little bit more complex, we'll call you and maybe run a screen share.